All right. Welcome to what we are going to call episode 49. My gosh, 49 episodes of this wild and wacky podcast. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein, former sport history, philosophy, sociology, psychology professor, PhD, author. All the stuff you're supposed to do in the university wasn't good enough to keep me there. Thank goodness I don't want to be anywhere close to those places anymore. I'm like lunatic asylums at this point, which is great. I've been emancipated. I've been liberated. And now we are deep in the world of fitness coaching, life coaching, endurance training coaching, the tribal professor with team tribal training, and all of these different things. Now, if you're someone who wants to get in touch with me about these various things that I'm doing now and sort of making the ideas alive, not just in my own life, but in my clients' life through coaching, mentoring, guiding, and training, I'm going to drop a link to my Substack in the show notes and simply just shoot me a message. We can talk, and we're just sort of slowly evolving this whole creative project here in terms of writing and producing and podcasting and coaching and teaching and all these funny things. So I guess as we embark now pretty close to episode 50 and beyond, I want to give everybody a little bit of a chance to reach back and to interact with me and to inquire about some of the things that I'm talking about and how to realize them, actualize them, and strive for your own potential with these ideas in your own life. So definitely get in contact with me if you are interested. But today I want to bring you inside, like really inside of my process when it comes to creativity. And you might be thinking, what does that have to do with sports? What does that have to do with training? What does that have to do with the athletic life or the athletic ideal? And I assure you, we will get there. But one of the things that I'm finding a lot of success with right now, just in terms of creative output and creative production, is taking direct questions that people have either about training, my own process, my ideas, my philosophy, my experiences, and turning those directly into podcast recordings. And last week, I was on my Tribal Quill Keepers call. So Tribal Training is the endurance training team that I'm on. I also coach on. And one of the things that we do on the team that's very different is we emphasize the importance of writing as a clarifying and edifying tool in our training process. In particular, writing is a way for us to unlock deeper meaning, deeper value from our training, and then to extrapolate, what we reveal through the writing to then transfer into our lives outside of physical training. And this is the way that we can sort of transcend ourselves through the training, not just in terms of like physical performance, but say performance as a husband, as a dad, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as an employee, whatever other character you play outside in the world there. And they're all types of characters, but that's maybe a podcast for a topic for a different podcast. So we were on this Quill Keepers call, which is a specific group inside of our training team that's dedicated to becoming better writers. And we sort of play around with different writing exercises, with different prompts, with different projects. Like we all built a digital product, for example, in one of our cohorts. But there's this strong synergy between thinking and doing. There's a strong synergy between thinking and doing when you are intentional about it. And the doing can be incredibly informed by the thinking, and the thinking can be incredibly informed by the doing. We create these little infinity wheels where things kind of flow and feed into each other, right? So we were on this Quill Keepers call, and there were some great prompts from head coach Brian Dreyer. And it was all about generating ideas on what we could be writing about in terms of social media posts, in terms of longer articles, even in terms of sort of internal journaling prompts. And one of the things that we did at the end was go around, we shared, there were sort of these 8 very short prompts. You were supposed to write down just kind of what came to mind. And then we asked the other people on the call, what would you be most interested in learning about, or in, that person talking more about? And 2 people highlighted the same thing for me, which was how specifically physical activity helps us reorient reality, which is a concept I've been just thinking about. And, that is almost like at the nexus of where all of my philosophical ideas are connecting with each other. And, I recorded this big time podcast on this in episode 47. Go check that out. Episode 47 is on fire. And it actually kind of bleeds into episode 46. So there's 46 and 47. And these are sort of initial forays into me eventually wanting to write a book and to publish out these ideas in a more formal way. And that got a couple of the people on the team interested, because there's not too many people in my position that, especially on the team, that have already actually published a book. Like, not a lot of people have published a book in the world. I'm talking like a real book. I'm not talking about you wrote something and you self-published it on Amazon. It's like an independent press or what. Like that's fine. I have got nothing against people who want to create and distribute, but there is a difference between like a book that's put out by a publisher and one that you put out by yourself. And unless you've, have we'll say like a career as a writer and an author, and you've gone the traditional route, but now you're off doing the independent. It's kind of like an artist, like a recording artist, like a musician that makes it big with Sony, and then they start up their own label. Okay, that's fine, but it's like you still needed Sony to get you there. And there's a difference between, the tapes that you made in your basement and like the pressing of your album by a big time label, or even like a small time label, for that matter. And for me, this is not like boasting or bragging or anything like, oh, I published here and you published there, then I'm better. It's more just like a distinction and an observation, right? Like, I have a manuscript. I have a book that's been published by one of the top academic presses in the entire world, right? And it's my book. There's no co-authors. There's no compilations. It's like me, my ideas out there, published. You can buy the book. You can go into academic libraries and take it off the shelf. Like, this real thing. It's this real thing. So I know what it means to publish a work. I've also recorded an album, 2 albums on, albeit a very minor record label, but a record label nonetheless, right? And this was before technology allowed anybody to effectively become a record producer with their own laptop. It was kind of like right at the beginning of that. So I have experience creating, is kind of what I'm getting at. I have experience in creating actual products, things with, things that are tangible. And when we're talking about creativity, so often we're talking about like the ephemeral, like the things that are not able to be touched, measured, or recorded. Like, we're talking about my inspiration or my passion or my ideation. We're not talking about the actual products. So they were very interested in this idea of, oh, you're writing a book. Oh, I'm really intrigued on that whole process when it comes to creating something, taking ideas that are maybe latent inside of you, actualizing them into a real life product, into a real life work, we'll say it, a real life work of art. And I think I want to talk about that today. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because my current approach to creativity is almost a mirroring. It's not exactly like a replica, but it's a mirroring on the way in which I've approached athletics in the past, we'll say 10 to 12 years, that I've been back consistently training, aiming myself at improvement, holding myself accountable to consistency when it comes to hitting workouts, but also like pushing performance. And then in the last couple of years, re-entering the world of formal competition in terms of races. Almost exclusively the races I've done have been in service or for community, but I have done races where, performance is the thing that matters. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about my creative process, the way I've approached creating things in 2025, which, on the team, we kind of dubbed as the year of relentless creativity, and how I'm finding tremendous success with creative output and rhythm in the very same way in which athletic training with the right intention and the right mindset has given me this incredible momentum and these incredible results. And I'll just talk for 1 minute about the physical stuff, and then we'll get into the creating things, because I really want you out there listening to appreciate the synergy that comes from an athletically inclined mindset properly actualized, like properly acted upon. So right intention in the heart, right actions in the body, that going to give me this incredible mental clarity. It's going to give me this incredible mental precision that I'm going to need to navigate the uncertain world of creativity, which is like possibly the most chaotic world that anybody could find themselves in. And one of the neat things about the team, being on the team and sort of doing this and also helping other people, like I have one-on-one clients that I help with creative projects, and in particular writing. I don't necessarily want to go into specific details, but a couple of people I'm working with right now, we're talking about people that are launching online publications, right, that are coming into their second year of existence with like an incredible amount of momentum. I also have another client who's writing a memoir of his life, which is colored with like horrible instances of abuse and neglect, right? And how physical training and writing about this, right, initially in a reflective and journalistic way, but ultimately ultimately will be in a shared way, is bringing this particular individual an immense amount of mental clarity over themselves that, just to quote them, that they haven't experienced, in the past 4 decades working with all manner of therapists from all the different spaces. So there is something to this connection between like the mind and the body when it comes to creativity that's quite intriguing. But it first has to start with the consistency of the body. It has to start with discipline, structure, and a willingness to submit yourself to the truth of the training. And so for me, the way in which I've created an incredible fitness base, both with consistency, but also with performance, has been a small output kind of a mentality. It's a frequency thing, it's an enjoyment thing, it's a fun thing, and those are the things that are the first orders when it comes to my physical fitness. And, stop me if you've heard this story before, but I was somebody that, had many false starts when it came to getting back into fitness. I was a sporty kid. I played lots of sports growing up, had a few injuries. You move out of that phase of your life and you want to do different things. I moved into music. I stopped playing sports, but I always wanted to be fit and be athletic. And especially once I knew, it was time to start having a family, like I wanted to model the correct behavior. I didn't just want to say, hey, sports are important and we should do them. I wanted them to be something I already was doing so that, the kids would be able to know that it's important to be, physically fit and active and to strive through physical challenges. This was a big part of my childhood, and I knew that was going to be an important part of my children's life, my future children at this point. And so, about a dozen times I've tried, I'll start with just home workouts, body weight stuff. I'll go to the gym, I'll do machines, I couldn't make it happen. Until I found trail running. And then I had this love. I had this love and this burning desire and this passion to do this thing like over and over and over again and to get better and better and better at it, right? So when it comes to creativity and when it comes to athletics, right, when we're trying to talk about a consistent approach where I'm doing the things, here's the first synergy. None of it happens without love. Like, none of it happens without love. Artists who create love what they do. They love creating. They love the output. They may not like every time they sit down to try to create. They may not like everything that they produce. They may actually despise the process. Like, I love writing music, but I hated being a musician. I hated late nights. I hated dive bars. I hated ogres. Literal ogres, you know, your sound guy, your bartender, your local promoter. Like, the worst kind of people are the people at the very bottom of the music scene, especially the music scene I was a part of, which is kind of like an aggressive rock and roll style of music scene, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Play that out till you're 50, but you have no success and just all the damage. And yeah, you're not a very nice individual. Not a very nice individual. But, you know, sitting down and writing a song and figuring out how to fit different parts in with different instruments and my bandmates, and like, I could do that forever. I love that process. The recording process, that's like the competition. That's like you show up and, you know, your producer, bam, he hits record, and you got to be ready to perform. And I remember on the full length that we did, just knocking out a couple of one takers. Man, that was such a good feeling to be able to play to a click, hit all your notes, be done with all your recording sessions, like, in a, you know, very short time, not much longer than it actually takes just to do the actual recording, you know, because you're proficient, you're technical, you've practiced, you're enjoying what you're doing. So that's the first synergy. The first synergy is love. You have to love what you're doing, right? If I want to be consistent in physical activity and I want to be consistent in creating anything, I have to enjoy. I have to enjoy what I'm doing. I'm not going to be consistent if I don't enjoy it. Okay? So that's number one. Number two is this idea of frequency, right? So love first, frequency second. Figure out what you like to do and then figure out how to do it as often as you possibly can. So, like, when I went trail running for that first time, it was this immediate thought in my mind when I finished, like, how do I do more of this? How do I do more? It wasn't, I need to go longer when I get out here so that I can do more of it. It's, how do I do this more? Like, how do I go from 1 time a week to 2 times, or from 2 times to 3 times? And every time that I would sort of veer off a little bit from frequency and trail running, and I sort of posed the question in my mind, like, hey, would you rather do this, or would you rather, you know, get a 3rd time out on the trail? And maybe you can only go for like a very short amount of time, but it's like that time matters more in terms of frequency. Like, I'm doing it more. I'm doing it more. And it's the same thing with creativity. You have to be doing it more. You need frequency. It almost doesn't matter what the output is. It's the frequency. Like, there's a great story about Jerry Seinfeld, one of the most famous comedians and most successful comedians of all time. He has a practice where he writes a joke every single day. He just sits down and he writes a joke. The joke might be horrible. The joke might never make it into any of his sets. Like, most of them don't. But every single day, there's a frequency of writing one joke a day, right? And you're going to argue with Jerry Seinfeld's process on creating comedy. The guy's a legend. The guy's an absolute legend. Yeah, he's got the laughs to prove it, in a sense. So really, you know, my creative process right now looks exactly like those early stages of trail running. It's, well, what do I really enjoy creating? Like, what are the modes in which I appreciate the challenge, but also, like, really enjoy trying to overcome it and sort of almost like meet the challenge, right? You know, I've done some road runs and some paved trail runs, but I never got that same satisfaction or that urge to keep going, like when I found myself on a single track running through the woods, darting up and down in between the trees, the rocks, and the roots. So it's not even like running was the thing I loved. It was a specific, particular style of running, right? And for creativity, let's just think about running and writing as similar. It's like I don't like this type of writing, but this style of writing, oh my gosh, I want to do so much more of it. So you have to really think about the way in which you're creating as a very important feature of the creating process. I know that sounds almost redundant, but it's a very important fact, and I will get to that in just 1 second because I need to make sure my computer is charging. So we are going to commit the cardinal sin of broadcasting. We're going to go dead air for, I don't know, 2 seconds, but I'm not editing this. This is part of my creative process to just hit play and let it go. And how quick can we go? 5 seconds? Less than 5 seconds? Let's do it, team. Oh, crisis not averted. This is taking more time. Oof, I'm really bungling this one up. You know what? Let's create a different kind of pressure. Let's not plug in the computer and let's just see if we can sew all this up because I can't find a plug and I put myself in a bad spot. And you know what? We're just gonna have to live with it. We're just gonna have to live with it. So that gives me 31 minutes and change. Oh gosh, let's do it. Real-time creativity. Real-time creativity here. Okay, so the way in which you create matters to your creative input. When it came to writing, like I was trained to write in a particular way for over a decade. I was trained to write academic articles. I was trained to research in a particular way and to present information in a particular way. And when it came to transferring that out to a different type of creative medium, I was like really uncomfortable. I didn't quite know how to do it, but there was something about posting on, at the time, Twitter that I appreciated. It forced me, this is way back in the 140 characters or less Twitter, like I have all these complicated thoughts or complex things in my mind, or so I thought, and this restraint like forced me to write in a different way. And I actually started to really like that process that was going on in my mind. So I'd never been one to post on social media or anything, but the creative way in which I was forced to write on one particular medium made it easier for me to continue writing. And I had tried to be writing emails or blog posts or things like that, and I just could never get it to stick. And so the ease by which I was able to create in one style opened up different ways that I could then create in other styles. So again, enjoyment and frequency. So it's the ways in which you enjoy doing something and your ability to do it as often as possible. Like in the beginning days of my creative journey here, I wasn't able to be writing like a big blog post all the time. I was still a professor, I was still teaching, I was still grading, still doing all these things. But rifling off a couple of 140 character or less items, totally easy. And that's the approach that I've been taking in 2025. It's like, what are the things you enjoy creating? Well, I love talking. So podcasting has been a big thrust of mine. And my goal was to do one a week. So 52 podcasts in 2025. Hey, there's a nice little numerical inversion there. Never realized that. But it was a way in which I needed to just up frequency. And one of the ways in which upping frequency works and is very similar to the way in which I was able to become consistent in athletics was to remove the pressure of the outcome. To remove the pressure of the outcome from an objective standard on the outside. So when I was running, it was like, I don't care about running a 5K. I don't care about running whatever the beep in whatever zone is. I want to run this trail that I like, which happened to be out in Komoka Provincial Park in London. It was just this out and back. It was like 7.5 kilometers. And I just wanted to go there and get really good at running that track, like really fast. And that was good enough for me to build this consistency. So there's a little bit of an accountability to the output, but ultimately it's the subjective decision making on where you find the value in doing the activity. And so when it comes to creating, let's just take podcasts, for example, like I'm interested in the numbers. I'm interested in the metrics. And just to give you guys a little peek, we just crossed 1,000 downloads for all combined. This was the very first month too, where I had 0 days with 0 downloads. So every single day of July, somebody downloaded the podcast, or one of the episodes, which is one of the benefits of having a lot of episodes. If one person likes, you listen to it once, and you're like, oh, I kind of like that. Now there's 48 other episodes. So that's, one leads to potentially 40 more downloads. So there's like this exponential curve, but that's also a part of the whole, that's part of the whole gamble here. Part of the whole gamble is that you can create the conditions that will lead to an exponential breakthrough. And this is exactly, where training and creating can come together, especially with this idea of frequency and enjoyment. What do you enjoy? Do it as often as possible. What do you enjoy? Do it as often as possible. That's the basic framework here. And when it comes to writing and podcasting for me in 2025, it's how often can you do it? And how often can you do it in a way that you enjoy it? So I really enjoy writing these coaching style blog posts where I'm taking what's effectively alive in the conversations I'm having day to day and week to week, with the people that I'm coaching, and turning those directly into articles to help people who are reading them. And for a long time, I struggled with this sort of like academic past and this coaching present and future. And some of the articles that I would write, it would be like a mix of professor and a mix of coach and some citations and some academic concepts, right? And there's a part of me that likes doing that, but it wasn't coming easy. It wasn't coming naturally. It wasn't something that I could just fit into my day so that my frequency would be high. It was something that I could do maybe once a week. And I'm putting all this effort into this like once a week publication that's not really doing much, so I shifted to something more like 4 to 5 articles a week, a little bit more improvised, a little bit more kind of building on each other. I might not necessarily know what I'm writing about for the week, but I'll remember a conversation that I had with coaching, and that will give me one article, and then one might turn into 2 and 3, and then I kind of have these like almost like serialized weekly messages on my Substack now, where it's like Tuesdays bleeds into Wednesdays, which bleeds into Thursdays, which bleeds into Fridays. So you end up with these kind of like progressions. But if I was having to sit down and plan these out the week before in order to do them, like I wouldn't be doing them. It's the improvisational nature of it. It's the off the top of my head nature that I appreciate. And it's the same thing with this podcast. I didn't know I was going to be recording a podcast today. I just looked at my schedule and I said, oh, this is I got open space. So I want to do, 52 a week. So I need frequency. What's the stuff that I like doing? I like talking off the top of my dome. Oh, that's right. I remembered last week, 2 guys on the team were interested in my creative process. Oh, I was just sitting at a coffee shop, hammering out some of the final touches on my new 6-week coaching program. It's going to be like a group coaching program, and it's also a way for me to be more effective and refined in my my communications, tying sort of like each of the topics from each week as these like major themes that sort of all feed into what I talk about. So it's like, okay, great. Let's go home. Let's just hit record. Let's do a podcast. Let's see what happens. You guys are literally in the middle of it where I don't even have access to a spot to put my power cord in without taking my computer off. So now we're totally constrained in the time. But I think this works for me. And I find this engaging and allows me to keep pumping out and producing things, right? So it's this dual approach of enjoyment and frequency, and not worrying about outcomes. You don't worry about the outcomes. You just do the thing. Just do the thing. And eventually the outcomes catch up. That's how it works. And in fitness, let me just spell this out in fitness again, because I'm somebody who hasn't aimed for particular kinds of progression, maybe not until recently, but that has only come with coaching and needing to communicate this stuff as kind of like a proof of concept, and also competing, and coaching and actually training athletes. So now this is part of something that I have to pay attention to, but it wasn't something I initially even cared about. I just wanted to do the thing, do it as often as possible, and get a little bit better, each year. And now, 11, 12 years into that process, I had this vision of, it's okay to not be working out and be all athletic in your 20s. So long as you're fitter entering your 30s than your 20s, then you're good. And, I was able to do that. Then I had this, what if you were fitter going into your 40s than you were going into your 30s? And I thought, that's a neat goal. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but just keep pushing forward. And there's just no universe in which I'm not fitter at 39 than I was at 29. There's no universe. My body might be a little more sore in terms of some of the load I put on my muscles, but like my cardio, my strength, my endurance, I mean, it's night and day. Like, I haven't been swimming for 5 years, and now I jump in the pool and I swim 3 times as long as I used to, and I don't consider it hard. I used to consider, 30 minutes of continuous swimming to be really hard 10 years ago. Now it's an hour of swimming. It's easy. I actually love that. I love an hour of full swim. So in terms of like having faith that things will work out, like, and that you can create your own exponent with these things, fitness is the perfect example of how this works. Small wins stack consistently. I think I probably spelled this out in another podcast, because I did talk about the small win stacking approach. Shows you just how on the fly I do these things. I feel like it's one of the early 40s or late 30s, the episode. I talked about the stacking of small wins, and it's effectively my fitness philosophy, but just like a tiny little snippet of that, right? If I'm just doing pull-ups and I go to my 1 rep max every time I step up to the pull-up bar, well, I probably need a day to rest before I get back to the pull-up bar and go for 1 set max. So like if I can do 10 pull-ups on Monday, I go do 10 pull-ups, and then on Wednesday I do 10 pull-ups, and Friday I do 10 pull-ups, and then maybe Sunday, right, I can sneak in another 10, so I get 40. But if I step up to the bar and I do 7 every day, that's 20% more pull-ups than I just did. And if I do that for a year, if I have 20% more pull-ups, how much stronger am I going to be, right? So this frequency and this small win stacking to create this exponent, like, this is a very real idea in fitness, and that's what I put my faith in for creativity. It's like, get 100 podcasts, get 500 articles, right? Create a consistency of you putting things out. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be definitely not good. But that's okay, because it's more about doing the thing and enjoying doing the thing and wanting to come back and do it again. Like, if I just do my 10 pull-ups and I can't lift my arms the next day, I'm not super motivated and excited to go back and do the pull-ups. But if I do 7 and then I feel spry, I'm going to be like, yeah, let's go right back again. So effectively, the way I create now is to get excited about creating the next thing. So it's not about this podcast. It's about, I really want to do the next podcast, or, I really want to write that next article. And so when it comes to the big project here, which is like writing this book eventually, I'm going to be taking the exact same approach. Small win stack. Here's a book that I think might be interesting. Take some notes on the book. Don't even necessarily collect. I started collecting it into one document, and that's like too much pressure. It's way too much pressure. Like, enjoyment, frequency. Oh my gosh, now my kids are going to come in. This is awesome. Let me just move this. Let me move this very quickly. We are really on the fly here. Don't worry about it. We're gonna walk up the stairs, or we're gonna go outside. We're just gonna do something. Maybe we'll escape to the basement for a second. I only have about 5 minutes left of my power anyway, so none of this is really that big of a deal. For those of you watching, you can legitimately see all this mayhem, and I am very happy to share it all with you, because to me, this is more fun. This is the style that I like to create in, and you take the good with the bad. You take the good with the bad, right? So when it comes to this book, it's the same thing. I don't want to put too much pressure on the outcome. I want to find ways to up frequency and enjoyment. And one of the ways that I'm just initially experimenting with frequency is talking about it. Telling people I'm doing it. Again, picking out book titles, reading, synergizing some of my conceptual ideas with some of my practical coaching experience and my own personal experience. And more just like planting lots of seeds that I hope will grow and be cultivated into the future. And ultimately, when it comes to creativity and athletics in general, when things are done through your heart, like when they're done as passion projects, when they're really driven by interest and desire, well, then your physical activity becomes part of your creativity, right? It becomes part of your expression. And oftentimes, we'll try to get people to imagine athletics as a form of artistic creation, because I want that heart turned on. I want that passion. I want that interest turned on, because enjoyment, as I've mentioned, is like the very first element in this whole process here. Now, I am getting the absolute death signal from my computer, so I'm going to wrap this up in about 1 second here. I'll probably expand upon this in a future podcast, because, creativity, training, living in a process, these are evergreen topics. So this is definitely not the last word, and this is less than ideal in terms of how I've recorded this. But again, frequency is more important. Frequency is most important. And do I look like I'm not having a good time, guys? Do I sound like I'm not having a good time? This is great. This is absolutely great. And I'm somebody who wants you to be able to fit in all the things that you want to do while also being obligated to your responsibilities. And also, just like showing the reality of what it's like to try to fit all this stuff in. It's like, you want to be a provider, you want to be a creator, you want to be athletic, you want to be supportive, you want to be in service. Like, things are going to get messy at times. And we don't do ourselves any good by trying to sugarcoat that. So final word on creativity and athletics. Like, I really believe that a mindset of internal satisfaction and internal motivation as the primary mover in both is the way in which you're able to thread them together. And it's threaded through the heart. It's always threaded through the heart, guys. It's always the open heart that leads the way. And when my heart is open in creativity, writing, reading, whatever, and it's also open in terms of like the physical training, well, then like I'm able to expand my capacity in both, and I'm able to take lessons from both. I might want to plug in my PC. Well, I'm not so sure I want to do that. So ultimately, again, guys, it's these two pillars that's working for me that I think you guys can absolutely benefit from as well. It's enjoyment and it's frequency. Enjoyment and frequency. That's how you get consistent in physical activity. That's how you get consistent in creative output. And eventually, once you're doing the stuff enough, then your skills improve, your technique improves, your experience improves, your networks improve, your capacity improves, and then you're actually setting yourself up for the outcomes that you desire. And they almost become inevitable because you're setting yourself up with a process that allows you to keep going. And ultimately, it's the keep going part that separates the people who find success in this life and those who don't. The ones who keep going win. The ones who quit, we call you losers and quitters for a reason. So stop quitting, Stop losing. Start figuring ways to just do what you like more. And I promise you, if that's in the realm of athletics or in creativity or anything else, that's going to be your secret success and your foundation to build lasting gains upon. Peace and love, guys.